Okay, let's go. Good evening. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for September 26th, 2022. If you would please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Judy Hutchinson.
Here.
Corey Stites.
Present. Here.
That is here. Amanda Weaver.
Here.
Janice Hoppy.
Present.
Rachel Holteen.
Present.
Scott Ohm.
Here.
Valerie Nosler Beck.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have 7 of 8 council members present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Councilors, we do not have any minutes in our packet. Our next item is approval of the agenda. We have, if I don't hear any corrections, we will let the agenda stand as presented. Thank you. And we have some proclamations this evening. So, our first proclamation this evening is in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October 2022. Whereas October 2022 marks 37 years that National Breast Cancer Awareness Month has educated women about early breast cancer detection, diagnosis, and treatment. And whereas 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer within their lifetime. And whereas when breast cancer is diagnosed early and is in the localized stage, the 5-year survival rate for women is 99%. And whereas the awareness campaign in remembering those who have lost their fight against breast cancer, standing with those who remember their loved ones, and continuing to support our nation's advocates. And whereas the American Cancer Society has searched endlessly for a cure through vital research and has the mammoth task of educating our community and all Americans about the risk of breast cancer. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Bud Starker, and the Wheat Ridge City Council wishes to recognize October 2022 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month and encourages residents of Wheat Ridge to celebrate successes and memorialize lost battles. Dated today, 26 September 2022. We don't have anyone who was able to make it this evening to accept that from us. We have another proclamation in support of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I would like to invite Detective Sherry Ells, who is our personal crime detective that specializes in child and domestic abuse and violence cases, to join me up here and speak a few words when I'm finished with the presentation. Thank you. So this is a proclamation in support of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October 2022. Whereas domestic violence impacts countless Coloradans without regard to age, race, religion, or economic status, as victims suffer at the hands of a spouse or partner, it affects their children, families, and entire communities. And whereas the City of Wheat Ridge is committed to the reduction of domestic violence and the health, safety, and welfare of its residents. And whereas the Wheat Ridge Police Department is committed to providing assistance to victims and witnesses of crime and other traumatic events through victim assistance partnerships and awareness-related efforts and events. And whereas Wheat Ridge joins with other citizens across Colorado and the nation in supporting victims of domestic violence and shares the worthy goals of this month-long observance and likewise supports the work of public and private entities that strive to provide the best coordinated response to domestic violence in communities across this state, sending a loud and clear message to abusers that domestic violence is not tolerated in the city of Wheat Ridge. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the City Council and the people of Wheat Ridge, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Wheat Ridge, dated this 26th day of September, 2022. Thank you.
I just wanted to say I've been with the department for 31 years, and 18 of those have been in investigations, and we work very hard to protect our victims and investigate the cases very thoroughly. So on behalf of the department, all the officers, investigations, and our victims, I want to graciously accept this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the work that you do in our community. I would like to invite Officer Molly Stark from the Patrol Division at the Wheat Ridge Police Department to join me at the podium. She's here today, and she's got a few words to say about our next proclamation. This is a proclamation in support of National Pedestrian Safety Month, October 2022. Whereas the City of Wheat Ridge strives to be a comfortable and safe place to walk and ride a bike for people of all ages and abilities. And whereas children walk along our corridors, through our neighborhoods, and cross our streets on their way to Wheat Ridge schools. And whereas the CDC states that physical activities such as walking can help improve overall health and lower the risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, depression, and some cancers. And whereas the benefits of walking extend beyond personal and physical to supplemental benefits that can lead to healthier, quieter, cleaner, and safer streets. Walking can also improve local economies and enhance social and community engagement, leading to more vibrant, resilient, and livable spaces. And whereas in 2020, 6,516 pedestrians were killed and an estimated 55,000 pedestrians were injured nationally. And whereas people of color, children walking to and from school, people with disabilities, and people over the age of 65 are at greater risk of serious injury or death while walking than the population as a whole. And whereas to improve the safety for pedestrians and bicyclists who have the right to arrive safely at their destinations, drivers of vehicles must stay alert and be cautious while traveling on our roads. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, and the Wheat Ridge City Council formally designate the month of October 2022 as National Pedestrian Safety Month and encourage all of our citizens in Wheat Ridge to travel around our streets as safely as they can. Dated this 26th day of September, 2022.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for acknowledging the Police Department's effort to continue our education and enforcement for pedestrians, the people who live in Wheat Ridge, who visit Wheat Ridge. We want to make it as safe as possible so that they can enjoy our beautiful city. So I gratefully accept this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm really excited to recognize the Wheat Ridge High School girls softball team who are back here with us. And I'd like to invite Coach Bill Jacquish and Cooley Thies to come up to the podium. And I think what we'd like to do is to have the team, if you all would come up and assemble up here in front of the city councilors. We're gonna have a a little celebration here and take some photos. Okay. Great. The Wheat Ridge High School girls softball are back-to-back Jeffco 4A League champions. Currently, in this season, looking for a third league championship. In the last 10 years, they have won 1 state championship in 2013 and 6 overall. And 6 of the last 10 years have been league champions. Wheat Ridge High School has made an appearance in the postseason every season for the last 25 years. Congratulations, ladies.
Good evening, Mayor Starker and council members. Thank you for this honor of recognizing the 2020 and 21 league champions at Wheat Ridge High School team. This championship means a lot as 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of Title IX. With the community support, these ladies can aspire to be the future of women's sports and one day be role models in our community, just as the detective and the police officer came up as women in their community. I'm honored to be their coach and invite all of you to come out and support these ladies to the next home game on October 6th, 4:30 at Pennington Field. Thank you again, council members and the mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go. Let's get up there. Counselors, if you'd stand up, we're going to have a few pictures. So let's make sure that... Okay. Our next item on the agenda is a public's right to speak. The public may speak on any matter not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes under public's right to speak. I have a sign-up sheet, and we will go down the sign-up sheet. And if you would, when your name is called, please come to the podium and give us your name and address. Name, first name, last name. If you'd please spell your last name and give us your address, then you'll have 3 minutes to speak to the council. And our first speaker is Joseph Crows, and Alana Ritchie is on deck. And if you'll just come right to the podium, and I think the microphone should be live.
So what I wrote down my complaint was to discuss with you this evening was Cane's Chicken Fingers, or Raising Cane's.
Okay. Before you get started, give us your first
Sorry.
name and your last name and an
My
address.
name is Joseph. It's actually Four Crows. The IV
Okay,
are
thank
the
you.
Roman numerals for 4.
Thank you.
I live at 3720 Yukon Court for the last 16 years. Colorado native. All my schooling was done here in Colorado. Graduated from South High School. Lived here most of my life. Where the apartment building is that I'm going to be discussing with you is on 3720 Yukon Court, okay? Cane's Chicken Fingers is just to the east of us by, I don't even know the distance, but I'm having a survey done of that from where our building starts to where their building starts also. So we're just west, and in the middle is a parking lot. Cane's has, this has been an ongoing battle, guys. I mean, I'm just so stressed out. They have 2 speakers outside the building that face west, okay? That hits our building. It's a 3-story apartment building, 11 units. I'm the on-site property manager. I've contacted our police department, over and over and over and over about the problem that we're having. Here's a letter from our police chief listing times that they have been called about the noise and the activities that go on a daily basis during the week, definitely every weekend. So the letter basically is telling me that we've documented your responses. We don't think this is a problem that we can help with. We are no longer going to be responding to any of your emergency. Well, when I call, for example, okay, they say, "Is this an emergency?" And I say, "No, it's a non-emergency," and they respond. It's been wonderful. I thank the officers that have really responded. But in this letter that was sent to me, give me a second, December 1st, last year. So we're already into this year, 2022, and the problem hasn't been resolved. My complaints that I've always called into 911 is that 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, the speakers are blasting towards our building. Employees have punched out at 12:30, close to 1 o'clock. They loiter in the parking lot. I've got photos on my phone with 4 of them pulling out skateboards out of their vehicles, skateboarding in the parking lot because they're closed. There's no business going on. But they wake us up. And it's just on and on and on and on, and we're tired. It's very exhausting. I'm 65 years old. I still work. I have 2 jobs. And I need my rest to be able to go to work. I've had several conversations with Cane's Chicken Fingers in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the corporate office. It all falls on deaf ears every time. We'll see. We'll address it. We'll address it. And they say, by the way, we do have a policy that no employees are allowed to loiter after their shift. And this is the
Okay.
last shift of the evening, okay?
Okay, actually, so your time has expired, but
Great.
you have spoken to the council. They have heard you. Our staff has heard this. I'm sure that we'll have some further discussions about it. I don't know exactly
I
what.
would very gratefully ask for your help because we don't know what else to do. It's
Okay.
not the police department's problem. It's
Okay.
not. They got more important things to do
Okay.
than dealing with these minors.
All right,
And I
well-
beg you people to please look at this situation, see what can be done about these
Okay.
speakers and the employees because it doesn't stop and it's annoying.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
very much.
for bringing
I
this
appreciate
forward.
your time.
I appreciate it. Our next speaker is Alana Ritchie and Jesse Mayers on deck.
Good evening. Thank you for listening. My name is Alana Ritchie, and I live at 3905 Zephyr Drive, and I've been a resident of Wheat Ridge for the last 10 years. My 2 children go to Jeffco Public Schools. My son goes to Everett, and my daughter goes to Wilmore Davis. As you know, the Jeffco School Board has announced a proposal to close 16 Jefferson County public schools starting next year. The proposal looks to close 16 schools and merge them in a consolidation proposal that would close half of our Wheat Ridge community schools. The school board, in making this proposal, has failed to take into account the enormous amount of population growth in Wheat Ridge, currently and in the coming years. They have failed to look at the lack of transportation currently in the school district and the implications of a serious bus driver shortage, nor did they factor the impact of having a student population that's over capacity of the receiving schools, nor did they account for the millions of taxpayer dollars that has already been spent on school infrastructure and improvements such as brand new playgrounds and HVAC systems for each of the schools. The school board has failed to acknowledge the numerous traffic and safety concerns of children having to walk across Wadsworth in a construction zone or having to be dropped off and picked up at schools with only one access point on a small street to a receiving school in a small residential area. There are a number of serious issues in this proposal that would adversely affect Wheat Ridge as a community. With the amount of crime rising across the metro area, myself and other parents are highly concerned about the impacts of these closures on our small neighborhoods and our small communities, with these school buildings sitting empty and no clear plan what will happen to all the preschool programs affected, the before and after school programs that will be affected, and the traumatic impact it will have on our students with disabilities who are already so vulnerable after the pandemic. And there are many more issues with this proposal that I don't have time to go into. My family and I moved to Wheat Ridge because of all the city has to offer. I feel proud and connected to be able to watch my child skip to her legacy school, Wilmore Davis, that was named after the founders of this very community, and know that she is going to be safe, she's going to be included, and I know all the families and staff of my neighborhood school. Every child has a right to walk to a quality school in their own neighborhood. How many of you have had the privilege of walking to your school when you were a child? In an area of unprecedented growth, are we going to allow an opportunity that many of you has had as a child be ripped away from our own children? That sense of security and connection to your community. We are Wheat Ridge. This is what makes us unique. This is what makes us special. This is what makes us a community. Our small, connected neighborhood schools, it's what defines us as a true community. I sincerely ask the City Council to write a joint letter to the Jefferson County School Board and ask each individual member to reconsider this proposal and to vote no. We as a community can come up with better solutions that won't be so damaging to so many children. If we give up on our neighborhood schools, what does that say about our community, about our values? Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, we don't need to applaud or to jeer in this meeting. Jesse Mayers is our next speaker, and Suzette Vela Cruz on deck.
Good evening. My name is Josie Maris. I live at 4385 Emmett Street in Wheat Ridge. I live down the street from the school. I'm a homeowner, and I've been there 19 years. I have 2 granddaughters that go there. My oldest has gone there since kindergarten. She's in 4th grade. Youngest one, kindergarten, 1st grade. I'm asking you to please talk to the school board. Our school is a little school, and I pick my grandchildren up every day. And you know what's so unique about that school is all of us parents can sit there, and the kids come out, the teachers are wonderful. We don't have to worry about traffic. We don't have to worry about homeless people walking around. It's just a beautiful community. And I didn't really know I signed up. and I won't go more than 3 minutes, but I'm here to ask, please, we need to keep Wilmore Davis where it's at. For me to understand taking 200 students from Wilmore Davis, going across the street, Wadsworth to Stevens, maybe 400 kids in one school, what educational, what personal care are they going to get in 400 kids? Give our kids a break. Let our elementary children be in their home school, and then when it's time for them to go, they will go to middle school where they'll be with 400 kids. Then they'll be going to junior high where they'll be with Wilmore Davis is an excellent school. And my heart is breaking to even think about they're thinking of closing it. So I say we're trying to save our school. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Suzette Velacruz and Destiny Farr on deck.
This is Velasquez, Velazquez, and I live at 3675 Quay Street. I lived in Wheat Ridge for 12 years, and I love the community and the schools it has for my 3 small children. And I want to thank you for allowing me this opportunity to address you guys this evening. I asked City Council to speak up to Jeffco School Board on behalf of its community. I understand that schools need to close, but the transparency from the school board has been very bothersome. Not to mention the district doesn't have many answers. I've attended community meetings at the elementary school my children attend, and people will express their concerns and comments, but we get no answers. We're told many times that the answers are being worked on, but things like curriculum and transportation should be laid out before a decision is made. The only plan we're told of is the district saving money, and I feel like our students and our community is more than just dollar signs or numbers. Next, I want you guys to consider that Stober and Pennington were supposed to close 5 years ago from the district, but neither of those schools are on the list to close now. I worry that the district is closing so many schools, especially in Wheat Ridge, and that they may have to open them in the near future because of Wheat Ridge's growing population, causing students and families more stress mentally and emotionally, especially after what has been an unpredictable time during COVID. Also, it should be noted that Wheat Ridge is the only articulation area where the school board is going to, or the school district will have to build or add on to schools to hold the student body that is predicted to go there. In all, I hope that Wheat Ridge City Council finds value in our small schools as a community, stands behind our community, and helps our community be heard by Jeffco School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Destiny Farr and Megan Schlachter on deck.
Hi, I'm Destiny Farr, F-A-R-R. I live at 1465 South Eaton Street in Lakewood. Obviously, I'm not a Wheat Ridge resident, but I have 3 children in a Wheat Ridge Elementary School, Wilmore Davis. My husband is a teacher at Wilmore Davis, and I'm a victim advocate with the Wheat Ridge Police Department. So we have very strong connections to the Wheat Ridge community. And hopefully one day we'll be Wheat Ridge residents. I'm here to urge the City Council to take action to oppose the closing of 3 of our elementary schools in Wheat Ridge. This recommendation to close 16 schools in the county affects Wheat Ridge the hardest by closing half of the elementary schools. And it's not just affecting these closing schools, it's also affecting the receiving schools. The Wheat Ridge community is no longer going to have access to small schools that act as anchors in our community. They're the small schools that we love, the reason my husband teaches there and my kids go to school there. And my children thrive in this school as a special need kid. I have 2 foster kids. And this school has created unexplainable support for my family. Support that wouldn't have existed had they been going to a 600 children school. And despite the research that shows small schools are a great mitigator for inequities in education, the most impacted communities will be low-income communities, families of color, and students with disabilities from these closures. And I'm not just speaking from nowhere, where there's a coalition of parents and community members and staff in Wheat Ridge that have come together and looked at the data seemingly in more depth than whoever did the research for the superintendent. And while we at the coalition recognize something needs to be done about the financial and enrollment issues in the district, we cannot and will not accept them balancing the budget on the backs of our children without any input from us. So I'm just urging you to urge the Board of Education in whichever fashion you think would be most effective to vote no on the school closures and invite parents, community members, students, teachers, and staff to the table to work together to find creative solutions that address not only budget and money needs, but also the needs of our students and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Megan Schlachter.
Good evening. I'm Megan Schleicher. I live at 10315 West 33rd Avenue in Wheat Ridge. I am here to ask that the Wheat Ridge City Council and even individual council members, and honestly anyone who's listening this evening, to take action to support the 3 Wheat Ridge schools slated for closure if the Jefferson County School Board votes to approve the school district closure plan on November 11th. Their vote would eliminate half of the public school options available to Wheat Ridge families with school age or soon-to-be school-age children. And the school board acknowledged in a recent meeting that the closure plan did not account for Wheat Ridge development efforts, including large efforts like the Lutheran Medical Campus and Clear Creek Crossing. We also know when Denver residents decide to have a family, decide they need more space, want a yard for their children to play, but still want convenient city access and a thriving community, they choose to move to Wheat Ridge. These schools play an important role in drawing new families to Wheat Ridge, and these families are essential to continuing the thriving community we want to promote. We know they haven't accounted for this school-age population growth, and we must let them know that the closure plan cannot be approved. I want to emphasize that this closure plan does not only impact families with school-age children. This plan impacts Wheat Ridge as a whole, adding more families to the roads because an easy walk to school, which we mentioned how beneficial that is earlier this evening, is no longer possible. It does not help Wheat Ridge traffic density or reduce the number of drivers racing through neighborhoods to avoid busy roads and intersections. And if you live anywhere near the closing or receiving schools, or really anywhere in Wheat Ridge, this decision being approved will negatively impact our community. I am asking you submit a public comment on the Jeffco Schools website as the Wheat Ridge City Council. I want anyone to call the school board representatives, to email the school board representatives, to sign the change.org petition created by a local group of concerned parents. And then if you need more details on any of these actions you can take or the plan itself, visit saveourschools.jeffco.org. I also was notified by Color Strand parents that they've been trying to access the Zoom meeting to speak tonight and they've not been able to, so just a heads up. I know of at least 3 or 4 more that wanted to give you the same message this evening. But I want to thank all of you for your service and your time, and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you very much. Those are all of the individuals that I have signed up to speak. A couple of other notes on our public's right to speak. This would be the second opportunity for public input on the 2023 budget, so if you would like to speak on that item, this is an opportunity for you to speak on that. If you were here in City Hall and have not signed the list but would like to speak, you may do so now. And I'm going to need to ask what the status is on our internet capability and whether we're able to bring people in to our meeting.
Yeah, I was just checking myself. I know our city clerk should be logged on to Zoom? Is it,
Correct.
and it's functional?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I just logged on to YouTube. I got an email or a text, and it seems fine also.
Okay, so for anyone that's watching online or on Channel 8, if you would like to speak, during our public's right to speak, if you would raise your hand in the Zoom format, we will bring you into the meeting. And I would also like to say that after this meeting, we're going to have a special study session that has one item on it, which is community composting, residential composting. And as we do most times, we will take citizen comment on that agenda item at this time. So if you'd like to speak on that item, you may do so now also. So let me circle back. I don't see anyone here in the hall who would like to come to the podium and speak. Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone online that's raised their hand and would like to speak?
We do, Mr. Mayor. Jessica Tribbitt. For some reason, Zoom will not allow me to promote her to speak. I am trying desperately to allow her to use her microphone, and it isn't working.
Okay, let's give it just a moment or two to see if we're able to overcome those technical difficulties.
Thank you.
Jessica Tribbitt?
Yes. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay, Jessica Tribbitt, you're unmuted, and if you would introduce yourself, give us your first name and your last name and an address, then you'll have 3 minutes to address the council.
Hi, yes, my name is Jessica Tribbitt. I am a Wheat Ridge resident. I live at 3929 Sims Street, and I have been a resident since 2020. I moved here very excited for the opportunity for my family to grow here in Wheat Ridge. I have 3 small children, 2 of which are at Color Strand Elementary School. Part of what attracted me to this area was the small school system and small school setup that I know is so beneficial for our children. I also am not tone deaf to the realities of budgets and the declining enrollment in Jefferson County. And I understand that something needs to be done and support that. However, what I don't support and cannot support is the lack of methodology, the equity issues, and the financial responsibility and transparency that has been presented by the district and the school board. The methodology that has been used, the district cited the 2020 census data for their demographic and population rationale in part of their recommendation. In August 2020, the state demographer of Colorado, Elizabeth Garner, gave a presentation called Making Sense of the Census Data User Perspective, where she concludes that there are data accuracy issues and questions that it's even fit for use. She also notes the delayed release of components of the census, including the redistricting data and demographic and housing characteristic file. At the September 7th school board meeting, it was also noted that Wheat Ridge is, quote, the hardest municipality to get information about regarding potential housing developments. Based on the data that was presented in that presentation, they are at minimum missing the 300 apartments that were just opened at Clear Creek Crossing, another 250 townhome style buildings being built in the next year, 12 homes being built at 32nd and Kipling, nearly 60 Judy townhomes being built at 38th and Eaton area, and 12 apartments at the former Howard Johnson at 44th and Ward, and then the possible 2,100 units of housing that could be built at the Lutheran Legacy campus. They have acknowledged, Tracy Dorland, our superintendent, that they are not taking the time to evaluate everything by community. The feeling is that that could take too long and that there isn't the time for that. But that is their job. Before they penalize and create chaos further after COVID for our hundreds and thousands of children that will be impacted by this, they need to do their diligence, and that takes looking at this community by community. It cannot be a one size fit all. There is also no checks and balances with this recommendation. While this is not citable data, several of the school board members have been involved in creating this proposal, therefore defeating the purpose of a vote. We have heard from several of them that they have made their decision and there's nothing that can sway them. There's also major equality issues in this. A local demographer who is invested in our school system took a look at the public data that found that non-white students are twice as likely to be in a closing school than white students. ELL, so non-English language learners, are 2.3 more times likely to be in a closing school. And free and reduced lunch students are almost 3 times more likely to be in a closing school than non-free and reduced lunch
Ms.
students.
Tribbett, your time has expired. Would you please come to a conclusion?
Yes, I'll conclude in asking that you take action to support the community in demanding that Jefferson County School Board District vote no for this, that they take the time to evaluate community by community and look at the uniqueness of each when considering what needs to be done to reconcile our budget. And that includes looking at their own organization to reduce their org and cut their own budget before they penalize our children.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone else online with their hand raised?
We do. Christine Rome, R-H-O-M-E.
Okay.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, if you would please introduce yourself and spell your last name and give us an address, then you'll have 3 minutes.
Sure, my name is Christine Rome, and my last name is spelled R-H-O-M, M as in Mary, E. And I live at 3870 Allison Street. I'm over by, that's in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. And I'm over by the Wilmore Davis School. And I'm sure you can guess exactly what I'm about to say, pretty much repeating everything that everyone else before me has said, that I'm here at this meeting just asking so wholeheartedly that you all take a look at this proposal. It's pretty terrible, and it's going to impact a lot of families in a really terrible way. I think it's going to change Wheat Ridge in a more dramatic way than people realize as they're trying to just look at the budget and try to adjust. I think it's really awful that they are not really giving much room for public input. I think it's really notable that a lot of people who have been helping with this don't even have kids in the school, helping the coalition, don't even have kids in impacted schools. There's one person who spoke about all of the new development, and I think it's pretty notable to also say that there's a lot of new young couples moving to our area, that there's a lot of them. And at least in our neighborhood, from my house, most of the houses around me. So yeah, I'm just here to say, basically repeat what everyone else is saying, to please, please look at this proposal. Please listen as the community is coming forward to speak that this is not good and that we're really asking for some help. So there is a website. We've formed a coalition. There's a website. I'm sure you've seen signs around the area. There's been a lot of them distributed. Yeah, I would really encourage you to look into it. There's tons of data on the website as well. So yeah, anything else about this, I would just be repeating what everyone else has been saying. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for calling in tonight. Check with the clerk to see if there's anyone else with their hand raised in our Zoom format.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Kim St. Martin.
Okay. Kim St. Martin, if you'd like to join us, and please introduce yourself with your first name and your last name and give us an address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak
Yes,
with the council.
hi, hopefully you can hear me. My name is Kim St. Martin. I live at 3435 Vivian Court, and my kids go to Color Strand. I am the PTA president there, and I am also asking for the city council to contact the Jeffco School Board to vote no. It's so sad to see so many Wheat Ridge schools slated to close. And speaking just from experience from Color Strand, it's so disheartening after all our PTA board has done, and I'm sure the other schools would agree, in the past several years to really turn the school around and make it have a positive impact within the community and in our neighborhoods. I can't tell you how many people have commended so many of us for just the job we have done to promote our neighborhood schools in the past several years. I know I live in Applewood Villages, and we just had a block party this weekend, and to see the amount of families who now go to Color Strand and also who have babies from this COVID baby boom who would be going to Color Strand or other neighborhood schools. We have nothing against our school we're going into, but we just love our small community and are very lucky to have it. And I think honestly, as a local realtor, even you see a lot of people pick their neighborhoods because of their schools. And I guarantee there are so many people lately for Wilmore Davis, Vivian, and Color Strand who want those small schools. And I think our fear is if this does go through, Jeffco Schools is not prepared for what is to come to close 16 schools, let alone these 3 in Wheat Ridge. So I would strongly encourage all of you to please contact the Jeffco School Board and tell them to vote no, because I don't think they realize what would be to come if they did vote yes. These kids have been affected by so much in the past several years, and we just deserve to give them everything we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in to speak with us tonight. Mr. Kirkpatrick, is there any further speakers with their hands raised?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll give it just a minute or two. If you're online and would like to speak on any item not on the agenda tonight, you may do so now, either in council chambers or online, if you'd like to raise your hand. Any further hands raised?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much to all the speakers that came to speak with us tonight. We will close our...
Mr. Mayor, can I have a quick point of order?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received an email today from Caitlin Henschel at 3841 Tabor Court. She just missed the deadline by about 15 minutes for Wheat Ridge Speaks. She also had an email that she wanted read into the record, so I forwarded that on to the clerk, so when you check the minutes, those will be in there underneath the minutes, but it also relates to the school closures, and she's very much against it.
Okay, well then we will add this additional comment into our public record. Thank you very much, Counselor. We will now go into our action items, decisions, and resolutions. Item number 1, Mayor Pro Tem Holteen, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce a motion to cancel the October 24, 2022 regular City Council meeting due to the lack of a quorum. At issue, October 24, 2022 is a regularly scheduled City Council business meeting. The Jeffco School Board will be conducting public hearings that evening to discuss potential school closures in Wheat Ridge. It is anticipated that several council members will be attending those meetings, and therefore a quorum will not exist to proceed with the City Council meeting. This motion will cancel the October 24, 2022 regular City Council meeting.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council. Mr. Goff, do you have anything further to add on this item?
Nothing else, thank you.
Okay. I will, before we go to any questions or I go to a motion, open this up to the public to speak on this. I don't have anyone signed up to speak, I believe, on this item, but if you, okay. If you haven't signed up or online, we will recognize you to speak. And I see no one coming forward to speak on this item. Are there any questions of council? Before I go to a motion, Mayor Pro Tem Holteen, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move to cancel the October 24, 2022 regular City Council meeting due to the lack of a quorum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilperson Hoppe. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilwoman Nosler-Beck.
Just wanted to encourage council members who aren't attending anything else that evening to please attend the community meeting October 24th at Wheat Ridge High School. If you have any questions, both Councilor Stites and myself are on the FCB, these are the coalitions at least Color Strand and Wilmore Davis. There's also one happening at Vivian. We will be presenting some paths forward at the October 24th meeting. So if you have any questions about our presentations or what's happening that evening or how you could be involved, also please let us know.
Thank you, Councilor Nosler-Beck. Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also, unfortunately, I am out of town. I'm part of the problem why we don't have a quorum that night, because I am not going to be in town. Otherwise, I would be attending the meetings. But I do want to encourage both my peers as well as anyone listening to attend. Even if you don't have kids in the schools, these are important discussions that affect our entire community. I also just want to make a note to everybody. This is just kind of a weird time for scheduling. The disruptions from the incident, the cyber incident, have, created some backlog and delays from our amazing staff members who are both running the city and trying to stand up a new information system and communication system. So I just want to kind of give everybody, I'm like the flight attendant here for this plane. And we're going to be having some sort of, pauses and bumps, and then things might kind of get jammed on. I work with Patrick every week to do our best to kind of keep it as even as possible. But this will actually mark one of 3 weeks in a row that we don't have meetings. So we will do our best to keep it even, but there might be a couple of double headers coming our way too. So just be prepared. Thank you, everyone, and please attend the meetings and fight for our schools.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council? Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 2. Councilor Nosler-Beck, would you please introduce this item?
Thanks, Mayor. Resolution number 38-2022, a resolution supporting an application to the Colorado Parks and Wildlife's non-motorized trails grant program for the proposed Tabor Lake Trail construction project. At issue, City Council included the Tabor Lake Trail construction project in its list of APRA-funded projects earlier in 2022. Colorado Parks and Wildlife, CPW, offers annual non-motorized trails grant programs in the categories of trail construction, maintenance, planning, and support categories. The Tabor Lake Trail project is eligible to apply for funding through this program. To apply for the CPW program, a resolution of support for the completion of the project and a commitment for a long-term maintenance from City Council is required.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation?
Excuse me, not really much more. This is an exciting project, though. The staff is working with the School of Mines students to come up with some conceptual plans for how to utilize Tabor Lake better to provide more amenities for our residents. So we're hopeful for this grant opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to any questions from council, I'd like to invite the public to speak on this agenda item number 2. I don't have anyone signed up to speak, but if you are here, you may speak at the podium. And if you are online, you may raise your hand and speak. And I'll ask our clerk if anyone has raised their hand online.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we will close our public's right to speak on this item and go to any questions from council. And seeing none, Councilor Nosler-Beck, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve resolution number 38-2022, a resolution supporting an application to the Colorado Parks and Wildlife's non-motorized trails grant program for the proposed Tabor Lake Trail construction project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Stites. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilor Weaver.
I just had a question about, what am I trying to say? There have been some issues raised about conservation and habitat and things like that. And while I realize this is a non-motorized trail grant, have those other items that have been discussed about Tabor Lake been included in the project with the students, and sort of, do they know our hopes and dreams around?
Yeah, Karen O'Donnell, our Parks and Rec Director, is online. Karen, did you hear that question? Steve, is she on? Is she able to speak? Yeah, Karen, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he just unmuted me. Hi, everybody. Yes, to answer your question, Councilwoman Weaver, the School of Mines students have been working with exactly what you were talking about. Your feedback was provided from the last time we discussed this project, but also similar feedback has been obtained from community members as they were surveyed throughout this process. So we are not at the end of planning yet. In fact, we haven't really begun. We're just doing the planning stages with the School of Mines. But once we get to actually planning the project, that will certainly be included.
Great,
so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you just fill me in a little bit of the history of the students why they're chosen to do this project. And then also, what is the kind of endpoint? I assume at some point there'll be some type of construction document, and who's taking the liability for that?
So we had two different School of Mines projects. One was a junior class that was working on a smaller project, and they completed that. And our senior class is working on this particular component of the Tabor Lake Trail. And essentially, they're just providing us with their recommendations, and it will help when we have an engineering firm on board. The engineering firm will take that information, but because they're not certified professionals, it can't be used specifically for the project. It just helps inform the beginning stages of the project. But yes, we will have design and construction as we would with any other project. This is just kind of a helpful component. But the School of Mines does this every year, and they ask different community organizations to come in and propose different projects, and then the students get to select what they'd like to participate in. So we had two school groups that were interested in working with our Parks, Forestry, and Open Space team on this project.
Thank you. I definitely feel like they're on the right track, and I kind of see this as definitely a kind of a hybrid. I feel like we definitely want to get that connection between the workforce housing and that being probably like a concrete trail, and then the crusher fines on the other side. As a cyclist, this doesn't really interest me to bike around, and my preference would be just to keep it simple, keep it gated, and I think that would probably make a lot of other people happy too if it was just a non-biking trail. I don't know if that impacts any groups, but and then I also know that spending time up at Crown Hill, that they have certain times of the year where they shut off the bird habitat area, which is totally acceptable too. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A comment and maybe, I guess, a comment and some input. I love that we are partnering with schools on this, and it reminds me of our partnership that we did with Wilmore Davis for the nature play design area at Anderson, and it's yet another reminder of the great contributions of our neighborhood schools, especially District 2 neighborhood schools. I am going to politely disagree with my peer, my co-counselor. I think, so I ride my bike through there quite a bit. I enjoy getting lunch at Long Shots. They have really good pho. And it is really treacherous as a bicyclist to travel anywhere on 44th Avenue through there. I take Tabor, and I will, the sidewalk's kind of wide, but it's in terrible condition, and there's a lot of non-local traffic that's like coming in and out, and it's just really treacherous. So I would encourage the design, maybe not accommodating bikes all the way around, but some sort of accommodation to provide additional access to 44th to minimize travel on 44th, especially as we're looking at trying to improve bike ped access to our TOD on the other side of I-70. So I'm excited to see this move forward. I will cross my fingers that you guys get your grant, and would love to see it just help accommodate additional access to 44th Avenue for people walking and biking. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
The motion passes unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That completes our agenda items on the agenda tonight. So we will go to City Manager's Matters. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few items this evening. A lot of things going on in the city still. We have a joint open house tomorrow evening from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center. That's for our 44th Avenue sub-area plan and also our open space management plan. So if you have time tomorrow evening, please come out. It's a drop-in. You don't have to be there during the whole 4:30 to 6:30, but just drop in and you can give some comments. Also, some exciting news. Dr. Cog awarded the city some transportation funding last week for 3 projects. We're receiving $890,000 for bike and pedestrian improvements on 32nd Avenue at I-70. Also receiving $6.5 million for a shared use path on the west side of Wadsworth between 32nd Avenue and 35th Avenue, and $8.3 million for multimodal access improvements at the Wheat Ridge Ward commuter rail station. So thank you to Dr. Cog for that funding. That's going to allow us to divert some funding to other projects in the city. And then also, finally, the city received a check last week. I'm not sure if you all heard, but we received a check from the Metropolitan Football Stadium District in amount just over $500,000. As you know, the Broncos recently sold. There was a contract provision that required the previous owner to share back a portion of the profits with the stadium district. Our residents paid into that district for a long time. I think that tax ended in 2011. So we're getting just over $500,000 back. And we have the money. It's in the bank. The money has to be used for youth activity programs, and that's about all the direction we've been given. So we're investigating that further to see if there's any additional requirements, and we'll come back soon to you all with a proposal on how to use those funds. I'm sure you do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Unless our city attorney is joining us remotely, then we will skip his report tonight and go to elected officials matters, and I'll start with our clerk, Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was overwhelmed last week by all of the gratitude expressed by council to the city staff during the recent incursion into our systems. I just want to make a comment that over the last 30 months, our staff has survived a pandemic and the ransomware attack. And for the most part, our citizens were able to conduct business with the city very easily. Name another organization that could do that. FEMA can't do that. Perhaps the United States Marine Corps. But other than that, I doubt it. And what that speaks to is the culture that the leadership in the city has created and the amazing people who work here. And I wanted to take note of that and thank them very much.
Thank you. We will then, let's go to our council, and we'll start with Councilperson Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I might be one of these people that the cyber thing did affect. Tomorrow, I'm going to be the proud owner of a new sewer line. Tomorrow will be 14 days without a sewer. So we had a website. We didn't have a website. Then websites changed. Then we didn't have phones. Then the phone numbers changed. Then emails were sent and they got lost. So in this process, I understand, okay? But I've been living like Little House on the Prairie. And minimal water, and hopefully tomorrow it'll get better. And I'm also thinking, at most of our meetings, like even tonight, we talk about money and how well Wheat Ridge is doing, okay? Maybe we shouldn't talk so much about how well we're doing, and we might not have hackers. I mean, it's just a thought, because people are listening. Why would they pick out Wheat Ridge? I mean, seriously. I mean, but we do talk about how financially well off we are, and I get it, but I think other people get it too. So from a person who was kind of affected by this whole process, you know, it'll get better tomorrow. I'll live like the rest of you. Thank you.
All right, hope so. Thank you. Councilwoman Noslerbeck.
Thanks, Mayor. I wanted to just ask, when I couldn't find it when I looked, but do we know when Trunk or Treat is? I signed up to have a trunk, but it didn't send me a date for when I'm having a trunk. I couldn't find it. Okay, so I have more things to say.
Okay.
But
trunk or treat's coming up, and we're going to find a date really soon, and I'm excited about it.
It's on the 22nd.
What's that?
October 22nd, 4 to 6.
October 22nd. See you all at trunk or treat. It's going to be great. I also, there were a lot of comments this evening from residents who are impacted from the announcement about the school closures. And I wanted to just take a moment and in all of this, just commend folks who are stepping up and being a part of the process and elevating their voices for the first time potentially in some of these spaces for what they want to be sure to ensure for future generations that are growing up here in Wheat Ridge. And so it takes courage, and I think that our community has done a really incredible job of coming together over the really tough stuff. And I'm just really honored to have heard from so many from my neighborhood, honestly, this evening on the issue. I also want to remind everyone who's participating in these conversations is that it's really hard on all of the community members and the families, but it's mostly the most hard for teachers, educators, those that are working in the schools day in and day out, because they're faced with incredible uncertainty. And a lot of times when we're pushing back, trying to save our schools, sometimes a lot of the teachers and educators are dealing with a poorly funded school. And they may not be on the same side as us on this issue. And that's okay, but we need to be here to support them no matter what, because that's really what makes our school so special, is the people who are working inside them, and also the kids who are there. So I just want to commend our community for coming together, like I said, over the tough issues. I also want to thank the staff once again. The cyber security attack happened at the same time that the school closures were announced, and the staff has done so much to support at least Counselor Stites and I as we've been trying to make and connect with the school district. So thank you all for all of the support. And trunk or treat is October 22nd.
Thank you. Counselor Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was able to attend Saturday the Art on the Farm over at Guy Namiash's, I don't even know which, I guess it's like a farm, but patch of land. But it was a lot of fun. My kids had a lot of fun. Riley, my daughter, is excited to go back. She's kind of an artist, and she's going to be throwing some paint out next time in October, so she's pretty excited about that. I also want to thank all of the neighbors in Applewood Villages, which is my neighborhood. We heard from some of them tonight that put on our block party this weekend. It was absolutely amazing. I got to attend several block parties over this year, but this one had a trackless train, bounce houses, lots of really cool stuff. So, and I want to thank Local Works, who was gave us a grant for that. And anybody who's putting on block parties, make sure you guys talk to Local Works. They do a great job giving grants out for those. And Sustainable Applewood, Sustainable Wheat Ridge is also a big part of that as well. So they did a fantastic job. The Business Awards Breakfast is this Thursday, and I guess I'm happy to go, but I'm also sad that we're giving up our title of Business of the Year on Saturday. So I'm excited to go and speak a little bit, but also gonna miss that. So I hope everybody can make it, especially all my fellow counselors to that. We have a lot of businesses in this city that work very hard and have done it through COVID and a lot of other things. So we appreciate our businesses, and if you can find it in Wheat Ridge. And then one thing I'd like to ask, we had several residents tonight both in District 2, District 3, District 1, come and ask us for some action as a council. And I'd like to maybe see us put together a resolution and maybe a letter to the school board and the school district asking them to either not vote for this proposal or to change this proposal so that it doesn't, maybe it gives the schools a chance to be voted on separately. So I'm not sure what the wording is on that, but I don't know if I'd have any support in that.
Are you looking sort of for a consensus?
I second.
For consensus maybe
Okay.
on that, or I don't know what the best way to go for that is, but
Council Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen?
Yeah, can I just ask for a point of clarification? Councilmember States, are you looking for consensus for a letter from council to the school board or a resolution?
maybe both. Definitely a letter to go to the school board, maybe asking them to relook at their plans. But a resolution, maybe we can vote on in the next meeting, talking about maybe some of the points that we have and why Wheat Ridge specifically has been hit harder than all the other articulation areas.
Okay. If that's, if you'll just go ahead and ask for consensus on those as individual items.
Okay. Can I get a consensus for a letter from council to the school board and staff asking a reconsideration of their proposal?
Point of clarification, can we ask for it from staff as well, or does it just come from council as a body?
Can we come from the entire city of Wheat Ridge government, or does it just come from council?
I think it'd be more appropriate to come from the council if we want to have official council action on this. Is this something that you or your colleagues may be able to bring
We can
forward?
maybe
to
draft and
bring a draft forward for consideration, then we'd have particular language
Yes.
that we could look at.
We could put that together for, would it be our next business meeting or the study session next week?
Well, we couldn't take any official action
Oh,
on it.
we couldn't take any official action on
until,
the study session, so
at-
our next business meeting, which is October 10th or something like that.
Yeah. it's-
October 10th would be our
October
next, regular scheduled meeting.
Okay. We can have language for that letter.
So we
and
could
have that
put something on the
go forward.
calendar for that.
Yeah, could we actually discuss it at the study session to finalize the language?
On October
Next
3rd.
Next
Yeah.
week.
That packet goes out Thursday, so I would have to have, if you want something in the packet, I mean, we can talk about it, but if you want something in the packet, I need it by tomorrow or Wednesday.
Okay.
So if you want to put some you could put some draft talking points together, and we could stick that in the packet. You guys could talk about it, and then draft a letter after the fact.
If we
or-
can at least put the conversation
Okay.
on the agenda, and we'll see what we can get together by Wednesday.
And I think you have consensus, do you have consensus to move forward at that, to receive that report then? Looks like we do. Yeah, okay.
Can I get a consensus for a council resolution? Sorry, my little fuzzy thing is gone. Trying to get the language right on that. Maybe asking the school board to reconsider as a actual council action, reconsider their position or reconsider the proposal.
Why don't you bring that forward next week for the discussion?
Can do that.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you. I've had a couple of discussions with Stephanie, the school board president, and the superintendent a few weeks ago, definitely the citizens need to keep having some civic conversations with the school, and look forward to, seeing that draft letter and signing on to that. On another note, on Saturday, my wife and I were up the Clear Creek Canyon helping clean garbage with 650 other people. The city of Wheat Ridge was one of the sponsors for that. And I was really happy that, it was like a community. We cleaned up 13 tons of garbage along the road. And when my wife and I drove out to the Clear Creek Canyon, we kind of thought it'd be like it was last year. You kind of go to Prospect Park, kind of like that. And we just kept driving and driving and driving. We were like number 9, and I talked to some other people, actually a city employee this weekend. They said they're at number 12, so it was a lot of cleanup along that highway, and I was very happy because it's upstream of Wheat Ridge, so all that garbage has the potential to flow down into our city, and people had a genuine pride to do that. It was extremely well coordinated by Jefferson Open Space and the State Highway Patrol. Everybody coordinated, and it went together very seamlessly to make that happen. So big thank you to them, and I'm really happy the city was a participant in that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Goff, can I follow up with you on Mr. Crow's and the Raising Cane's issue? Just so I can get a little, not right, obviously now, but.
Yeah, I was planning to reach out to him too. That's the first I've heard of any complaints, so
Sounds
I
good.
think it's probably smart just to go to the property owner and see if, get them engaged.
Yeah,
But yeah, happy to discuss it with you.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everybody, as it is, I know the mayor usually talks about this, and since we had a proclamation tonight about it, it's getting darker earlier. And so if you're out on streets that don't have sidewalks, like 38th between Kipling and Youngfield, please be careful and aware of not only kiddos, but farmers that are out getting their mail and things like that. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate our city doing a proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I'm on the Board of Directors for Porchlight Family Justice Center, and we service victims of violence, domestic violence, elderly abuse, human trafficking, child abuse, and sexual assault. We have our first signature event coming up on October 20th at the Buffalo Rose. It's going to be lots of fun. It's live music, awesome food, silent auction, and the tickets are available currently at Porchlight FJC Family Justice Center, porchlightfjc.org. We also have some opportunities if you would like to be a table host, or if your business would like to be a sponsor. And we have sponsorships as low as $500. You could be a sponsor for our event. So just go to porchlightfjc.org to get the information on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. So I am grateful that the city gave some recognition to Pedestrian Safety Month. My son was actually hit by a car crossing the street last year, and he luckily was not seriously injured, but he was in the crosswalk, and the driver was not paying attention and was turning left and hit him. A lot of pedestrian safety is actually really about driver awareness, and it's really important as drivers that we are paying attention, and vulnerable road users really don't always have a lot of great options, especially in Wheat Ridge, where we are not known for our sidewalks. So a lot of times pedestrians don't have a choice but to walk in the right of way. So we just really all need to be very careful about that. And along that, just sort of speak to what we heard about with the schools tonight. Wilmer Davis is my neighborhood school, and while my son did not attend it, every morning I watch the kids walking to school, and they're crossing 44th Avenue, and it just really tears me apart to think that those kids are going to have to cross Wadsworth to go to school. Someone said tonight that everyone has the right to walk to their neighborhood school, and I really fundamentally believe in that right. And when we lose our neighborhood schools, we're losing that element of community making and safety. And so everyone be careful while you're out there. On another note, I have two other quicker things. I'm really excited this Friday. The City of Wheat Ridge is hosting CDOT for a tour of all the projects that are currently under construction, about to be under construction, or recently completed that are funded through CDOT and DRCOG, and it's really astonishing. I've commented before, we are incredibly competitive getting transportation investments in our city, and we still have a ways to go on some of them, but it's pretty exciting to be able to bring city staff, and hopefully Councilmember Ohm can join us, and just really recognize CDOT's investments in our community. It's pretty big. And then on Saturday, Councilmember Ohm and I are hosting our District 2 meeting, and it will be at Happiness Gardens at 10 o'clock. It's really a community engagement. We're not bringing a heavy agenda. We want to, share a couple of updates and really want to hear from our constituents and our neighbors what's important to them. And so the weather looks good, and it's my favorite setting in District 2, so we hope to see everyone there.
Thank you. I want to thank all of the citizens that came tonight in person and joined us online to talk to their council. I can't tell you how important that is to the dialogue that we have with our citizens, and I know that it makes an impression on our counselors who weigh these things very, very carefully. I want to thank the Wheat Ridge High School women's softball team for coming tonight. What a great way to start your meeting with champions and a lot of energy in our council chambers. So thank you very much, and to their coaches who do a great job coaching them to victory. I want to thank Detective Ells and Detective Stark for coming and talking and being here to receive the proclamations that we have, and for the work that they do for domestic violence awareness and for pedestrian safety. As you've heard in the council, we've got a lot of children in our communities and a lot of people that want to be out and about because we have such a beautiful place to live. Please be careful as you drive around our communities. Just watch out for everyone's there. My community in Southeast Wheat Ridge is undergoing a study with the Let's Talk people from our zoning and planning department, and we've met with them on a couple of occasions on their open houses, and I want to put out a people to the folks that are running that program. They really prompt some great questions and some great thinking about our communities and the communities that we live in, and how we can make them better, and really seeking ideas from the public. And that's really what we need, is a robust discussion on the ideas that we might be able to incorporate in our neighborhoods and in our cities. So really a shout out to them for that. In addition to all the other great stuff that our staff does, we can't really thank them enough. It's been a stressful month. I think it's been a stressful couple of years, but we just keep soldiering on. So if there's no more business to come before the council, we're going to adjourn here, and then we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we will be back for a special study session. So thank you all for being here. We will stand adjourned. special study session for the City Council for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for September 28th, 2022. We have one item on our agenda, that is item number 1, residential composting. On item number 2, the Race and Equity Task Force update, was requested that we postpone that presentation. So we have already invited the public to speak on our agenda items, and no one came forward to speak, so we will now go into our item number 1, residential composting. And Mr. Goff, do you have a introduction for the presentation?
We do. I will turn it over to Marianne Schilling to give that introduction.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Marianne Schilling, Assistant to the City Manager. Tonight we have with us Mary Hester, our Sustainability Coordinator, and she's going to be speaking to you all regarding our municipal code and how it addresses residential composting. So she will go ahead and take it from here, and then we'll both be available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Ms. Hester.
All right, thank you all. And good evening, thank you for having me tonight. Tonight I'm going to be discussing composting and a couple of proposed code amendments that would make that an allowed activity within the city of Wheat Ridge. And so I'll begin the presentation by going over the purpose and intent of the proposed code amendments. And then I'll move into the current language in the code surrounding composting, the benefits of composting, and how the proposed amendments are in alignment with the city's goals. I'll then move on to how this topic has been addressed by similar peer agencies, and then I will conclude with the proposed code amendments and a recap of staff's request. So, moving into the purpose and intent of tonight's presentation, staff was directed at the July 11th council meeting to research composting and potential code amendments that would be needed to make that an allowed activity within the city. And tonight, staff is going to be requesting consensus from council to continue working with the city attorney to bring forth an ordinance that would amend Chapter 15 of the Municipal Code, which is the nuisances section, to define composting and allow that as an activity. So the intent of the proposed amendments is to really provide clarification within the code that composting wouldn't be included under the scope of Chapter 15 and therefore not considered a nuisance. The intent at this time is not to impose specific standards that would explicitly define how and where people would be allowed to compost. And so this is the current language that is found within Section 1525 of the Municipal Code, which addresses unlawful activities. And while this section doesn't explicitly mention composting, the language here could be interpreted to include composting as a nuisance and therefore as a prohibited or unlawful activity. And this is the section of code that staff is going to recommend clarifying to state that composting would not be included within the scope here, so long as it isn't otherwise creating a nuisance. And I'll go over some proposed language in later slides. And there are many benefits of residential composting, and Sustainable Wheat Ridge and staff are proposing these amendments so that residents can realize the benefits and so that the city can stay aligned with its agricultural roots as well as its stated goals. One of the main benefits of composting is the diversion of waste from landfills. Food scraps and yard waste make up over 30% of household waste, and whereas the composting of yard waste is currently allowed in Wheat Ridge, much of the food scrap waste from households is also compostable, and so that represents a good area for improvement within the city. And in turn, increased composting rates also results in reduced emissions generated from transporting waste to landfills, as well as emissions produced from the landfills themselves, and also lowers the carbon footprints of the individual households who choose to compost. Composting also has many benefits for the soil that it is applied to. It enriches the soil and helps to suppress plant diseases while reducing the need for chemical fertilizers. And the soil that's treated with compost is also more resilient to extreme weather events like heat and flooding, and has better moisture retention, which can make gardening more water and cost efficient for residents. And lastly, this would provide an educational opportunity for Wheat Ridge residents. Composting is a hands-on activity that anyone can partake in to learn more about sustainability and urban agriculture, while also becoming more aware of the waste that they are producing. Composting has been a very popular topic within the city's Sustainable Neighborhoods program over the past 2 years, And allowing it within the code would allow those who garden or grow their own produce to close the loop between waste and regeneration, supporting a stronger, more resilient, and cost-effective system. And the proposed code amendments are also in alignment with several of the city's goals. The city's 2035 vision statement directly mentions composting in regards to environmental stewardship, and the allowance of composting would also be in alignment with the solid waste and recycling goals found within the Wheat Ridge Environmental Sustainability Action Plan. Waste is a major area of focus within the city right now, and it's also one of Sustainable Wheat Ridge's major goals and focus areas as well. So in researching the best ways to amend Wheat Ridge's code, the codes of 8 surrounding municipalities were examined, and each of these does allow composting in some form, with 5 of them explicitly allowing composting within their municipal codes. And it should be noted that those 5 entities take a similar approach to what staff is going to be proposing by defining the relevant terms, composting and compostable materials, and then exempting them generally from either the nuisance and/or the health and sanitation portions of the codes. While Broomfield and Inglewood's codes do not explicitly address composting, it is allowed in both of those municipalities as well due to the absence of language, and then Westminster's code allows the composting of yard waste, but not that of household waste. So now I'll move on to the 2 changes that we are proposing. So staff has spoken with the city's attorney who is in agreement with this approach. And the first change that staff is proposing is to add a definition for composting and compostable materials, similar to that that other peer agencies have used. So for example, the city of Arvada uses a definition of compostable materials to mean discarded materials from any residential or commercial source that are collected separately for the purpose of being composted or otherwise processed into soil amendment, fertilizer, mulch, sludge, biogas, fuel, or electricity. And the second change that staff is proposing is to amend section 1525, which addresses unlawful activities, to clarify here that composting and compostable materials, which would now also be defined terms within the code, would not be included within the scope of this section. And the city of Arvada takes a similar approach by previously defining these terms in their codes and then exempting them from being considered a violation within the nuisance section of their code, unless the compost activities were creating a nuisance by means of foul odor or other miscellaneous condition. And so we feel that those 2 proposed changes together present a simple but a clean way to clarify that composting would be an allowed activity within the city. And so with that, again, staff is requesting consensus from council to continue to work with the city attorney to bring forth an ordinance amending Chapter 15 of the municipal code to define composting and exempt it from being considered within the scope of that chapter. And so that concludes my presentation. Thank you all again for having me, and I will take a seat over there, but be available for any questions that you all may have.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ms. Hester. Don't go too far. Staff, we'll open it up to questions from council and start with Councilor Weaver.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hester. I am in full support of this. I just want to make sure that having spent many years composting lots of different things, and it's a learning curve, and I just wanted to make sure that that language felt very clear for you all involved in sustainability. I have found that in my experience, and I'm sure some people up here who I know also compost, there's some do's and don'ts. There's some things that do create a biohazard and that do create nuisance environments and things like that. And I was just curious if there was a plan of sort of either education or, there's that gray area between I really want to compost and I'm now throwing my compostable plastic cups, which aren't really compostable in a backyard composting system because that's a high heat composting system. So just sort of, will there be education accompanied on how the excitement of composting can contained and channeled in Wheat Ridge. But I'm very supportive of this, by the way.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Yes, definitely. I think that presents a great opportunity for the city and for Sustainable Wheat Ridge to put together an educational campaign. There's so many different methods of how you can compost and what can be composted and what can't be composted. So definitely that would be our plan, to get those educational materials out there.
Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I too have some experience. I've composted for a number of years, and the just speaking from personal experience, the issue I had with so this is at a residence of having it on ground composting is that it tended to attract mice and black widows. Once I switched to the above ground, that issue went away. And for those who don't have black widows in your yard this year,
It was a good year for black widow.
I've had 2 big ones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, just if there's some way that you could write in the code, I don't know if you need to state that it needs to be above ground for residential. I think it's a good idea, but otherwise have something that just, doesn't attract rodents. If there's any type of, especially type of food waste that's sitting on the ground, it will absolutely attract rats and mice. Thank you.
Further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for bringing this forward. It seems, I was surprised to learn that this hasn't been addressed already in our community, given we are the farmers. So I do want to mention, actually, Denver Urban Gardens offers free composting classes, and so maybe as after council adopts final language on this, maybe the city's communications team could at least promote those free classes. There's only one more this year, but just letting people know that they actually have some great resources on how to compost. So, so I obviously am a huge supporter of this. To Councilmember Ohm's point, I know it can attract some unwelcome visitors. My neighbor's compost pile has a very happy, healthy rat family that lives there, and so my I guess kind of question, there's this language or other miscellaneous condition, and how is that interpreted? Like what would be, so at the end of the amending section 1525, it says, shall not be deemed a violation of this section unless it creates a nuisance by means of a foul odor, that's obvious, or other miscellaneous condition. And so would that be something that would be interpreted by the code officer? Like how does that get interpreted?
I think that likely the intent of that language is just to have a provision in there so that if someone does have a composting pile that is creating a nuisance to their neighbor, that could be the mechanism that is used by code enforcement to enforce upon that pile, which we would look, I think, to keep in our code as well. So it would have to adhere to the rest of the nuisance section and make sure that none of those things were happening. But I think that that's likely the intent behind that language there, is to kind of leave it open-ended so that if it is creating a nuisance, it can be dealt with accordingly.
Okay. Well, I think with language like that, we were just so quirky, and our residential properties, we have residential properties that are acres and acres big and other littler ones. So I think, being as the least restrictive in terms of what's allowed, knowing that there's some flexibility around what's problematic with them, and we can always revisit it if we're finding there's like some sort of pattern of problem that is generally coming about by the new wave of composting that Wheat Ridge will be certainly celebrating in 2023. So thanks for your work on this, Mary.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. I agree with Councilwoman Hulteen that we should keep try to keep it open under the miscellaneous conditions, because that could also include varmint. If it's if it's becoming an issue. But it also could include if there's a potential runoff, like water runoff coming from somebody's compost pile or things like that. I do agree with Councilmember Ohm, though, that perhaps we should have a two-part definition, and that, that it says like kitchen scrap composting should, like that type of stuff should be above ground, and that yard waste and leaves and grass and whatnot could be on the ground. But I'd like to potentially see when after you go with the city attorney and draft and bring back to the study session, I'd like to potentially see some examples on that.
Councilor Weaver.
Just to that point, I think that there's sort of a more robust conversation depending on whether it's below or at ground level or above ground, depending on what you're composting and the area of your property and the size of your pile. And so I would encourage you all to think about if maybe there's a proposed size as well, because it does depend on how much food matter you have versus yard waste and things like that. At the farm, I do no more than a 6x6 space. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is just the pros and cons of covering, whether it's with a tarp or with an actual thing that covers the compost, because that might also mitigate some of these issues that we're talking about. Thanks.
Thank you. I had one item back when you were talking, looking at the amendments to section 15-25. We had ending that paragraph, if it creates a nuisance by means of a foul odor or other miscellaneous condition. And I said perhaps a better word than miscellaneous might be objectionable condition, because almost anything could be a miscellaneous condition. So, but it's really an objectionable condition that you might be concerned with. But that, I'm always trying to wordsmith something, so. Councilor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. One thing about the composting also is if the organic matter is shredded or chipped, it will break down faster, okay, than if it's just thrown out there. And if you're putting food waste out there, definitely there are going to be some animals. I like how a couple of the cities have identified issues about wildlife, rats, mice, vermin, different things, skunks, raccoons, because it's going to happen if we have large backyards or whatever like that, and the animals just come in. Not everybody has a fenced yard. And I think it's good. Other miscellaneous conditions to me is abstract. So when I see other cities have addressed those issues, because we do have wildlife, and if they see fresh food that's thrown out from the kitchen or whatever, hey, let's go eat that, and it just could, not only that, it's a situation about people who have kids around having varmints and things like that. So miscellaneous condition to me also is just, it could be anything, so, but yeah, I've found that if you shred or chip it, it becomes compost a lot faster than if you just lay it out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to support the mayor's suggestion of the word objectional. I think that works really well. Nice wordsmithing. Do we get complaints about composting? Has this been an issue in the city? Do you know? Did anyone look into that?
None that I'm aware of, but I'd be happy to do further research on that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, composting is here in our city. It's like composting in ADUs, like the things that have, it's here, people are doing it. And I mean, there is the rat family. It also likes my wood pile too, which I have for a good reason and is perfectly legal wood pile. So, I think I just want to be cautious about not having to solve every problem with it, but rather we're just trying to legalize what's already happening here. And we do want to encourage people to compost. We want to make it easy. And so I'd be curious next time when it comes back, if there's any additional information on if we do get a lot of complaints about composting, so that we can maybe better understand if there are specific problems that we need to address or solve. And I know we have a lot of composting experts up here also. But I also just recognize we have, so many large properties and different conditions, and so I want to be as flexible as possible. Thanks.
And I know you're making a good distinction between people that are composting experts and those that just have a composting barrel in the back. So, Mayor, Councilperson Nosler-Beck.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to also say that I agree with changing the language to objectionable. And I just wanted to, there's been mention of mice, but in District 4, especially with our location close to Clear Creek and more water this summer, we've had quite a few, I've had quite a few residents reach out to me about an increase in rats, having a presence in the area. And so I know you mentioned that, Councilor Hulteen, but just, I think objectionable is a better word phrasing there. And then also, specifically, rats are a thing right now with all the extra moisture. So.
They do? Okay. Councilor Hutchinson.
Yeah. Just as a reference, CSU Extension has excellent information on composting. Thank you.
Okay, council staff is asking for a consensus from council to work with the city attorney to bring forward an ordinance defining composting and making that activity an exception to the scope of the Title 15 nuisance regulation. Do we have consensus to move that forward? It appears that we do. Mr. Goff, do you need anything further from council on this item tonight? We don't. Thank you so much. As item number 2 was pulled from the packet, we are done with our study session. Let's see, we have to go to staff reports. Mr. Goff. Okay, we're going to go to elected officials reports. Please raise your hand if you would like to make a report. Seeing none, we will dispense with the reports, and we will be back in session a week from tonight for a study session. I will not be able to attend in person, but with a little luck, we'll listen in online. So, travel safely. Have a good week. We are adjourned.